Okay, so shall we start with the prayers, please? Sangye chuta soge chanamla chanjum panda tani kyapsuchi dagi chinsoge sonange chola penche sangye chobara jo. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. The foundation of all good qualities is the kind and perfect Guru. Correctly following the Guru is the root of the path. By my clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely upon the Guru with great respect. When I have discovered that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once, it is extremely difficult to find again, and is greatly meaningful, please bless me to unceasingly generate the mind taking its essence day and night. This body and life are changing like a water bubble. Remember how quickly they perish and death comes. After death, just like a shadow follows the body, the results of black and white karma follow. When I have found definite conviction in this, please bless me always to be conscientious in abandoning even the slightest collection of shortcomings and in accomplishing all virtuous deeds. When I have recognized the shortcomings of samsaric perfections, there is no satisfaction in enjoying them. They are the door to all suffering and they cannot be trusted. Please bless me to generate a strong wish for the bliss of liberation. Through my being led by this pure thought with great remembrance, alertness, and conscientiousness, please bless me to make keeping the individual liberation vows, the root of the teachings, my essential practice. Just as I have fallen into the sea of samsara, so have all mother transmigratory beings. By my seeing this, please bless me to train in supreme bodhicitta, which bears the responsibility of freeing transmigratory beings. Even if I develop only bodhicitta, without familiarizing myself with the three types of morality, I cannot achieve enlightenment. By my seeing this well, please bless me to keep the vow of the sons of victorious ones with fervent effort. By my having pacified distractions to wrong objects and correctly analyze the meaning of reality, please bless me to quickly generate within my mind stream the unified path of calm abiding and special insight. When I become a suitable vessel by training in the common path, please bless me to immediately enter the holy gateway of the fortunate beings, the supreme of all vehicles, the Vajrayana. At that time, the basis of accomplishing the two attainments is keeping my vows and samaya purely. When I have gained effortless conviction in this, please bless me to protect them even at the cost of my life. Then, when I have realized exactly the vital points of the two stages, the essence of the tantric sets, and I'm enjoying the yoga of 4 sessions with effort without being distracted by non-meditation objects, please bless me to accomplish these according to the teachings of the holy being. Thus may the virtuous friends who reveal the noble path and the spiritual practitioners who correctly accomplish it have long lives. Please bless me to pacify completely the collections of outer and inner obstacles. In all my lives, never separated from perfect gurus, may I enjoy the magnificent Dharma, and by completing the qualities of the grounds and paths, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. Please try to have, by thinking this way, try to have a pure, hopefully Bodhicitta motivation for this this time we're going to spend together. It all depends on the motivation. If you have that motivation, then what we're doing here will become the cause of enlightenment. Whereas if not, then it could be the cause of liberation, could be the cause of some happy life after this one, or it could be maybe not even Dharma if you're not thinking, if you're just thinking about this life. So like the verse that we just recited says, just like I am drowning in the ocean of psychic existence, the ocean of suffering of psychic existence, so it's the same with all the mother sentient beings. So instead of just thinking myself, I'm going to take responsibility for all of them to free them all from suffering so they never have to suffer again, and to bring them to the best happiness of enlightenment. Mm. Sorry about that. Just got a message. Had to stop the person sending messages. Okay. So in this class, we're on the Bodhicitta, and two ways of meditating on Bodhicitta mainly. The seven cause and effect instruction, which starts off with recognizing or sending being as one's mother, and then the equalizing, exchanging self and others, which you find in that. Apparently, its sort of source is the Shantideva, also Nagarjuna, definitely. Of course, come back to the time of the Buddha, coming originally from Buddha. If it didn't come from the Buddha, that wouldn't be Buddha's teaching, would it? Okay, so in this book, if you're on the same page, arrangement as me, 201 anyway, we've done the equanimity and recognizing all sentient beings as one's mother. And then the text says, instead of going straight into the second one, it says, oh no, I'm wrong there. Yeah, okay, so this is part of establishing the sentient beings all in a likable aspect, he calls it anyway. So that very dear aspect, very, I think actually, yeah, very dear, very precious, appears to be very dear, very precious. Like when you say, wish fulfilling. Anyway, so now thinking about their kindness. So here it says something about Keshipotawa. Keshipotawa. One of the big Kadamba Geshis, which means one of the Geshis. Normally, these are the ones that were between Lama Atisha and Lama Tsongkhapa. Yeah, one of the great Kadamba Geshis. So meditate according to Geshe Potoa, who maintained that this will arise more quickly, the appreciation of their kindness, in other words. You're going to be able to think about the kindness of sentient beings and get a feeling for this kindness of sentient beings more quickly if you initially meditate on the mother of this life. So that's his advice. So the idea is to have a sense of the kindness of all sentient beings as one's mother. But Geshe advice, obviously talking from experience, is to start with your mother of this life. And yeah, I think I mentioned this before, but anyway, I can't remember. I might have touched on it, but it was something I was looking at this morning. Some teaching of Geshe Jampa Gyatso, the late Geshe Jampa Gyatso, who was the teacher at Lama Tsongkhapa Institute in Italy for many years. And so he said, this is also what some people say, because sometimes they say, in some of the texts, it talks about, the mother centimeters, just always like mother centimeters. But sometimes it says mother and father. And so he was making the point, which kind of makes a lot of sense, because why is it that we are meditating all sentient beings one's mother? The idea is that if you recognize all sentient beings as being your mother or having been your mother, and then you think about their kindness, recognizing all sentient beings as very kind is going to make it, without any kind of any difference, like all equally kind. It's going to be much easier to generate loving kindness and compassion, right? So usually they say it's easy the easiest way is to get a sense of like closeness and so on is to think of all sentient beings as one's mother and think of her kindness, their kindness as one's mother, just because most humans, that's the one that they have the most affection for. Except maybe parents, I don't know. But there's something special about the mother. Anyway, so you might find that you don't have a good connection with your mother, so you can also think of all sentient beings as one's father. Or if maybe nobody in your family has that, you have that kind of like emotional connection with, then it can be somebody that you have a very close connection with, like a best friend. Then thinking like that. Of course, the one special thing about the mother is then you're talking about somebody who, like right from the beginning, from conception, I mean, just giving you your life from conception, the time in the womb and so on, which we're going to be going through here. That's, from the very beginning of this life, maybe the only other one could be, well, it could be your father, of course, not like not carrying you in the womb, but anyway, somebody that you would feel very close to, really, like a strong feeling of affection. Could be a grandmother, grandfather. Maybe the parents weren't around. Maybe the parents died. So grandparents, uncle, aunt, something like that. Somebody, somebody who's not even maybe related to you. So hopefully we all have somebody in our life that we can think, okay, well, he, just like he has been so kind, also all sentient beings and also and that kind of thing. Anyway, you get the idea. But anyway, so he says, start with the mother of this life, since this is all in in terms of the mother. Think of the mother of this life. Visualize your mother in front of you in a clear aspect. So visualize her clearly in front of you and repeatedly reflect. She's been my mother, not only now, but countless times previously in the beginningless rounds of existence. In that way, when she was your mother, she protected you from all harm and accomplished all happiness and benefit for you. So this is thinking about the kindness, right? We've already, before this, we already had why it is all sending beings one's mother. Now thinking of, well, not just this life, but she's been my mother countless times in the past. And just like she's been so kind to me now, she's so kind, maybe even kinder, uh, in those past lives as well. In that way, when she was your mother, she protected you from all harm and accomplished all happiness and benefit for you. So then there's some more about this right there in the text. In particular, even in this life, she initially carried you in her womb for a long time. So number one, conceiving you. Number two, carrying you in her womb for, usually 9 months, right? Then after she gave birth to you, so it's missing one big thing there, right? Giving birth. She gave birth. So when you think about this, there's like, in this area of thinking about the kindness, you're thinking about the things that she did that helped you. You're also thinking about her own overwhelming affection for you. You're thinking about the way in which she was, that she suffered for you, willing to suffer for you, willing to work hard for you, to work very hard for you. This, again, some of this is coming up here, but so it's like the things that, what I'm trying to say is, I got this idea really from listening to Lama Zopa Rinpoche. I can't remember exactly how he used to explain it, but there's the kindness in terms of the things that she did for you, protecting your life, keeping you alive, making sure you survived, giving you, helping you, teaching you to even to go to the toilet, teaching you how to eat, giving you food, teaching you how to eat, teaching you how to walk, teaching you how to talk, all of that. Then, during the childhood and up until, you were able to live independently, all that. Then also the suffering she experienced on your behalf. And then also the things that she did, or let's say might have done, because it would vary, that involved creating negative karma for you. And so there are many sentient beings who right now would be in the lower realms because of the negative karma she created looking after us. So anyway, that kind of thing is very useful, very helpful. Then after she gave birth to you, she pressed your yellow tousled hair. I don't know what that's supposed to be about. That's how it's translated. I looked to Tibetan. I couldn't see any, I couldn't really get any clearer by looking at that. But anyway, so you're a little baby, and she's just given birth to you, and this is talking about the way she, like cherished you, when you were tiny. I don't know about yellow tusker, but generally speaking, the Tibetans are all black haired, so this is sort of like Tibetan way of seeing things. So I don't know why it says yellow. They call us the yellow-haired ones, Gobse. Actually, the ones with the yellow heads. Even if you got dark hair, they look at you and say, "Oh, it's yellow. It's yellow." Funny. Anyway, so then held you against her body. I mean, it's true, isn't it? So also, here there's it's maybe obvious. When you're thinking about what your mother did for you, some of them are going to be things you can actually remember, And some of them are things that you know she must have done. Maybe she told you, maybe you've seen photos, maybe you've seen just the way parents and maybe you yourself were with your children. And so you know, this is what my mother did for me, pressed her, pressed you against the heat of her body, held you against the warmth of her body. Then it says swung you on her 10 fingers. I really wonder what this is supposed to mean. It's just so weird. Swung you on her 10 fingers. How would you swing a little baby on your 10 fingers? What's that supposed to mean? So anyway, I looked at this sort of looked at how Pawan Rinpoche with Art Engel translating how he if the same idea came up in Pabonka's commentary. And so what he wrote, what he translated it was lifted us up so joyfully with the tips of her 10 fingers as if she discovered some great treasure. So you get the idea, right? The way that a mother will pick up her child like she's got the most precious thing in her hand, just so precious. Not like just kind of picking up with one hand and, under her arms or something, you know. And of course, when kids get older, sometimes they do get that kind of treatment, like just sort of like pick up with by one arm and that kind of thing. Yeah, but anyway, so it's the way she would have handled you as like the most precious thing in the world. Nursed you with her own milk, and of course that varies. Um, Fed you and wiped away with your snot with her mouth. Did any of you do that with your children? No. Apparently, Tibetan mothers, I don't know about all of them. Apparently, like there was that tradition because if you use paper, it's gonna, the baby's skin is very delicate, and so a piece of tissue paper might feel very rough. So, not wanting to inflict that on the baby, using the tongue. I know. But anyway, if you think about that, I mean, your mother wasn't always a Westerness. Maybe in some lives, you different kind of culture. Also cleaned your feces with her hands. Again, not wanting to. I mean, in in uh, in Pabonka Rinpoche's commentary, he's a bit more graphic. He says, she could have used a stick or a stone, but she didn't. She used her own hands. Yeah. Mm. Anyway, whatever. I mean, you can see. I mean, you can see how mothers they make it as easy as possible, right? So with the diapers and cleaning away with this piece of soft cloth kind of thing. Anyway, um, and cared for you untiringly in many different ways. In addition, she gave you food and drink when you were hungry or thirsty. She gave you clothing when you were cold, times of need. She gave you her possessions that she would not spend on herself. I mean, yeah, anyway, it's not so difficult. Maybe like things that she would give you things, her own things that she wouldn't use herself, spend on herself would maybe mean, she'd be willing to sell them and use them for you, even if that she wouldn't be willing to sell them and use them for herself. Then those everyday necessities were not easy to come by, and still she did her utmost to get them for you, and often mixed with bad actions, negative karma, in other words, suffering, and even risking having a bad reputation. It didn't matter as long as you could get what you needed. Then this is also quite, I mean, these are all things to, it's sort of like it's nice to talk about these things, but also just to really go inwards and reflect on these things, because it is really quite powerful stuff, actually. I think it is, Whenever her child suffered from a disease and so forth, she wished from the depths of her heart to die rather than for her child to die, for herself to be ill rather than her child to be ill, and so forth. I mean, I've never had that kind of, relationship with a child, but you see it on, I mean, you read about it, you see it on TV, and you can see it's just so true. I mean, what it doesn't talk about here, but which is also, I think, part of the meditation, we see it on the news these days. I mean, particularly, in the Middle East, the parents, the mother's got this baby, and the baby is going to die, doesn't need to die, really. Something quite simple, just really, but probably basic nutrition is all that's needed, water and something to eat. But it's like, can you imagine the suffering because of that affection? And then just the suffering to have this child that's ill, and you would take on that illness if you could, definitely, no question. They would do that, but somehow there's just nothing to, cannot do anything, just can't do anything. That suffering. If by meditating, did I finish? No. Yeah. So in terms of her attitude, her way of thinking is like that. Then in terms of her actions, it says it with effort, but actually it means, so not just in terms of her thoughts, but also in terms of her actions. She always did whatever she could to eliminate her child's suffering, your suffering. Then, to summarize, by whatever degree of knowledge and whatever degree of ability she had, she thought single-pointedly about ways to bring about your happiness and benefit, and to remove any harm and suffering from you. So then, if by meditating in this way, a mind thinking of her as kind, that is not just words, arises, so something you really feel deeply inside, like very sincerely, then meditate on recognizing other friends and relatives. So you're starting off with the mother of this life, things that you can remember. And this is why I say, remembering the kindness is wrong. It's misleading. Okay, remember if you can, but you're not going to be able to remember it all. Sometimes you have to infer it from what other people are saying, infer it from how you see others, mothers taking care of their children, the way you have taken care of your own children. So inferring it, so thinking about it, yes, not always remembering. You can't always remember. Thinking about it, and then also thinking about how she has been your mother so many times, countless times in past lives as well. So starting off with the mother of this life, then if by meditating in this way, a mind thinking of her as kind, that is not just words, arises, then meditate on recognizing other friends and relatives, your father and so forth, as also having been your mothers. Then you meditate on recognizing neutral persons as having been your mothers. And this is neutral in the same way as with the equanimity meditation. People that that you tend to feel kind of like indifferent about, as we'll see. Then when a similar mind arises towards them as that towards your friends and relatives, you should also meditate on recognizing your enemies as having been your mother. So now you've got friend, enemy, stranger all going there, thinking of as mother and thinking of the kindness. Yeah, it's interesting because this is about the kindness, but he's not mentioning about the kindness at the moment, but it's implied, right? Then when a similar mind arises towards them as that towards your mother, proceed to recognize all beings as having been your mothers and meditate gradually, extending it more and more. So for sure, extending it, like starting from the mother, then those who are close to us, then people who are neutral, then even the enemies, and then all sentient beings. So gradually going like that. So it's worth remembering that that's the order that's you know, advised. So then repaying the kindness. All right. So this is the third thing. And these are three things: recognizing all sentient beings as one's mother, thinking about their kindness, then repaying the kindness, and these all end up with the sort of like bring you up to the fourth one, which is the the affectionate love, or whatever you want to call it. So meditating on repaying their kindness. So should we stop for a couple of minutes to think about the kindness? Just try to remember as much as you can. Do think about even just to spend a few minutes thinking about how to do the meditation. Then it becomes like more and more imprinted into your memory, so that whenever wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you can think about these things instead of having to pick up your notes or pick up a book. And meditating on repaying the kindness. This is pretty straightforward. I think we can, for the most part, just read through it. So, this is page 203, meditating on repaying their kindness. There is, or anyway, there would be nothing more shameful than carelessly neglecting your kind, suffering, protectorless mothers. So this thing about all sending means, right? Just because you do not recognize them anymore, owing to birth, death, and transmigration. So anyway, so it's just I mean, you know what it's like. Sometimes you might remember dreams. Sometimes you don't remember at all. Sometimes you know that you dreamt something that made you feel good or made you feel unhappy, and you can't remember in the slightest what it was. You know what it's like when you wake up and you can remember the dream, and then even a few seconds later you can't remember at all. You know what it's like, right? So it kind of, in some ways, it seems strange. In some ways, it's not so strange that despite constantly going from life to life, we don't remember. It's something, because I know that, like, sometimes when I've been dreaming and known that I was dreaming, practically every time, either straight away or within seconds, I wake up. So it's as if the the awareness of being, I know some people are able to do this, they're able to do the lucid dreaming, but it's as if that type of consciousness that's aware of the fact that one is dreaming just doesn't fit. It's sort of like the wrong level of consciousness for the dream level of consciousness. And so the dream gets left behind and one wakes up. I don't know, that's not a very technical explanation, but it seems a bit like that. So just then waking up and then can't remember at all. And sometimes you can remember. And some people can remember past lives, can't they? Not necessarily great lamas. I've had friends who could remember. I have one friend who can remember some past lives, not all, but some past lives. I have a friend who had a friend who passed away quite a few years ago. Also, so and so there's nothing more shameful than to neglect them and then being preoccupied with freeing yourself from psychic existence. So anyway, yeah. So I know that the way it's expressed here, I don't know, I'm not quite sure, but basically it would be shameful to just think of yourself and your own personal liberation when all of your mother sentient beings need your help. That would be shameful. They're your mothers, right? They need your help and you're going to neglect them. You're not going to think about them. You're just going to think about yourself. That would be shameful. Then letter to a student. So this seems to be by Chanda Gomin. There's another one called Letter to a Friend. That's Nagarjuna. Okay, so the verse says, my kin, so my family members, I quite like my family members, are drowning in the ocean of psychic existence and seem to have fallen into an abyss. It's not really seem to have fallen into an abyss or whatever this word is, but anyway, but it's more like that's how they appear, they you can see it. In other words, you can see that they've fallen into this abyss. If I neglect them unrecognized owing to birth and death and transmigration, and seek liberation alone, nothing would be more shameful. So in other words, Lama Tsongkhapa said it, and then he said it is not just me. Chanda Gomin, this great Indian master, he said the same. Chanda Gomin's got a pretty amazing story, actually. I don't know all of it, but I know that he apparently So when he was born, he was able to talk straight away. And this freaked his mother out. So she said, don't talk. And so he didn't talk. And so when children, at the age when children are starting to talk, he didn't talk. And I think he went quite a few years past that without talking because his mother had told him not to talk. Anyway, something happened. I can't remember what it was that got him talking again. Yeah. Anyway, so well, anyway, you get the idea. So that's Chandragomin anyway. Thus you should take the responsibility to reciprocate their kindness, thinking if neglecting such kind beings is inappropriate even for the ill-mannered, or how can I reconcile it with my own ways? So anyway, ill-mannered anyway. So even amongst not the best people of society, but even amongst like people who are not really very good people, even they recognize, come on, they talk about favors, don't they? Somebody does you a favor, you owe them one, kind of thing. So even if even among, let's say, the rest of the world, I mean, if everybody kind of sees this, even bad people see that, then how can it be okay for me not to repay the kindness? They've done all that for me. Now they need my help. I'm not going to help them. How could that be right? Then you may wonder, well, then how should I repay the benefit? So basically what this is saying is the rest of it is they want happiness, same as I want happiness. They don't want suffering, same as I don't want suffering. In terms of the happiness, it's not enough to just give them, like a small gift, even to give them what they want, because most people just don't really know what's going to bring real happiness. So, since beginning of lifetimes in cycle existence, they've always made the same mistake as us, chasing after short-term pleasures that don't really bring happiness and bring so much suffering and so much negative karma to get them and so on. So I'm not going to repay them that way by giving them something which is just going to increase their samsara. What I'm going to do is free them from samsara, and I'm going to lead them to enlightenment. That's how I'm going to repay them. You may wonder, well, then how should I repay the benefit? Whatever pleasures and riches of cyclic existence your mother obtain, there is not one which does not or has not deceived them. Thus, you should repay the benefit, thinking, in the past, under power of the evil spirits, which are the mental afflictions, which possessed me. I was possessed by them. I produced all kinds of additional sufferings in those who were already suffered by nature. This is what I've done to them in the past, to repay their kindness, supposedly. I mean, anyway, you get not with a thought of repaying, but so these people who've been so kind, it's saying, these people who've been so kind, they're already suffering, and look what I've done to harm them in past lives. So instead of making things worse for her, so I produce all kinds of additional sufferings in those who were already suffering by nature, like pouring salt in the wounds of those severely injured, or maybe rubbing chili powder into their wounds. I will establish all those who out of love have benefited me in the happiness of liberation, nirvana, not just that, but enlightenment. In brief, so this is really like the way to meditate. I've often heard in the past, when you're doing this meditation, imagine the mother of this life at a time in the following aspect. Basically, she's very old, blind, very doddery. She's at the edge of a precipice, and she doesn't know, she can't see, and she knows she needs help, and she knows you're there, so she's there. So who is, like, of course she's expecting you to help her. Of course she wants you to help her, and from your side, you how could you not? help her. So it's kind of like bringing up that kind of feeling. In brief, your own kind mother. So imagine like that. Your own kind mother is, I don't know why it says restless. Anyway, she's not in her right mind, insane with the mental afflictions, right? Blind and without anyone to guide her, and is stumbling with each step as she approaches a fearsome abyss. If she cannot put her hope in her child, who can she count on? If it is not for the child to free the mother from fear, who else should do it? Likewise, owing to the evil spirits of the mental afflictions. So it's like, imagine if that were the case. First of all, imagine if that were the case. And then the next thing is actually it's much worse than that. Because if your actual mother was in that condition and she fell off a cliff, what would happen? She'd die. That's it. But here, it's even worse than that, because it's like the abyss of the lower realms, it's the abyss of cyclic existence, and kind of, actually falling off the cliff of this life to something even worse that's going to go on for much longer, indefinitely. So, likewise, owing to the evil spirits of the mental afflictions, the minds of sentient beings who have been our mothers are agitated rather than in their natural state. They are insane, crazy, without control over their consciousness. So, yeah, actually what he says is because they have no control over their consciousness, their mind, so it's like they're insane. They lack the eyes to see the path to higher states, in other words, to a good future life and definite goodness, which means liberation and enlightenment. They have that blindness of not being able to see those, and lack a true friend, a guide for the blind. In each instant, they stumble from being distracted by faulty behavior and wander toward the abyss of cyclic existence in general and the lower rebirth in particular. As you see them, you should reflect that these mothers necessarily put their hopes in their child. Of course, your mother is going to expect you to help, even if nobody else is going to help. She would for sure assume you're going to help. And it's like, of course, she wants your help. She needs your help. She expects you to help. How could you do other than to help? As you see them, you should reflect that these mothers necessarily put their hopes in their child, and that it is also for the child to get their mother out of there. You should repay their kindness by definitely getting them out of psychic existence and leading to enlightenment. The Compendium of Trainings. So this is by Shantideva. Insane with or crazed with afflictions, the mental afflictions, blinded by ignorance, on a path with many abysses, stumbling with every step. Myself and others are always subject to sorrow, always in a lamentable state. All beings are the same in suffering. So in view of this, although it is indeed said to be inappropriate to look for faults in others, and you should marvel at their slightest positive quality, when you see it, here it is. When you see it, here it is appropriate. I'm learning the disadvantages of an iPad. You pick it up wrong and then you lose the page. I lost my page. Sorry. Okay, so it's page 204. Yeah. In view of this, although it is, so what this is saying is that, in general, it's like the big advice is not to look at other people's faults and not to talk about the faults of others. There's one now, I can't remember who it was, who said this, but yeah, anyway, like one shouldn't, I think it was a Tisha. your Lama teacher. Never talk of the faults of others. Only proclaim their, their, what you call it, their qualities, the good things that they've done, like in the 10 directions kind of thing. And never talk about your own qualities. So, it's like quite easy to lead one's life in the completely opposite way, right? And we feel like we're being honest. Well, to be honest, they don't really have many qualities. I could make some up, I suppose. Mostly they're just, bad, rubbish. So anyway, it's that's not good. It's obvious good, actually. It's not good. It's like, yeah, I think it's never mind that it's destructive for everybody, but it's for sure it's destructive for yourself. It's just because thinking about and talking about the qualities of others. That's called rejoicing, isn't it? So it's a way of creating a lot of good karma. Yeah, and also talking about the faults of others. She did this and he did that. The person you're listening to, it could be somebody that they like, and now they're learning not to like. Could be somebody they don't even know, and so now they're going around with this thought, somehow this kind of attitude towards that person who you've been putting down. This is a bad person, because most of us are not really able to listen to criticism without sort of like being affected by it. I mean, it's quite difficult, isn't it? I mean, yeah, definitely. You like somebody criticizes them, you start thinking, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know that about them. I would never have guessed. Not as nice a person as I thought. That kind of thing happens, doesn't it? Have to be careful. At least, make sure that we're not the one that does that. So then, when you cause, so the person that you've just been talking about, this person did this and does that and that kind of thing. Now they're feeling more distant. So that means that what you've been doing is, what do you call it? Divisive speech. Divisive speech, right? So then, if you don't purify that, then that's really quite heavy. Negative karma, bad karma. Okay, so yeah. So even though that in general it is it's inadvisable, it's advised not to look for faults in others, and also to like rejoice and to marvel at the slightest positive quality they might have. Here there's a reason for looking at them and just seeing their suffering and seeing how they are creating so much more suffering for themselves, because you're thinking about it so that you can feel more of a sort of more a sense of responsibility. Yeah, so we particularly in the mind training teachings, they talk about training in pure appearance, which means focusing on the qualities of others, not focusing on their faults, making very light of their faults, not thinking about their faults. But in order to be able to generate a stronger sense of responsibility, since if the whole story about all everybody you see is just something good, you're only going to think about of them in terms of something good, then it's like why they don't need that means they don't need my help because they're so good. So anyway, this is something just have to think about and work out for yourself, really. There's training in pure appearance that has its own purpose, it has a role. And then for developing compassion, and here feeling closer to them and more of a sense of responsibility, more like there is really is something that I need to do. Being without being judgmental, being aware of their thoughts, their faults. Okay, so let's think about that for a couple of minutes, shall we? Thinking about repaying the kindness. Hmm. Oh, I feel like going back to the beginning of this this meditation, the 7 cause and effect instructions. Okay, so this is on page 199. So it says the actual training has 3 points: training in mind that strives for the welfare of others, and training in the mind that strives for enlightenment. Then I identify the Bodhicitta that is the result of that training. So that's not so surprising. Remember, they say that Bodhicitta has 2 aspirations. One aspiration which precedes it, which you could say maybe drives it, and then one which accompanies it. Because Bodhicitta is, in general, it's like a mind wanting to achieve enlightenment, right? So when we talk about 2 aspirations, the aspiration for So the aspiration for the welfare of others and the aspiration for enlightenment. So the aspiration for enlightenment is like there with the bodhicitta. That aspiration is part of bodhicitta. But then why do you want to achieve enlightenment? It's not just because, it sounds like it would be cool, because it would be very nice, very blissful, but for this, rather it's for the sake of all sentient beings, right? For the sake of all sentient beings. So that's the other aspiration, the aspiration to, they usually say, formal sense, the aspiration for the welfare of others. What it comes down to is the aspiration, and in fact really becomes a determination to free them from suffering and to, lead them to perfect happiness. So training the mind that strives for the welfare of others, that's what we're doing at the moment. When you get to the seventh step, that's when you talk about the mind striving for enlightenment. So then it says, training in the mind that strives for the welfare of others, you've got two things: laying the foundation for that mind to arise and the actual generation of that mind. So laying a foundation for that mind to arise, the mind wanting to do something for others. You've got equanimity. So this has 2 points: achieving an equanimous mind towards sentient beings. So in other words, equanimity, and then establishing that they all have a likable aspect. And remember, I know I had quite a bit to say about this, so anyway, sort of working with all the sentient beings in your meditation to bring them all to the point where you're transforming your own mind so that when you see them, you feel very close to them, is basically it. And when you feel close to them, which is what we've been doing so far, right? These meditations, seeing all sentient beings as one mother, thinking about the kindness, repaying the kindness. This is all making the sentient beings feel very close to you. You feel very close to them. Then on that basis, of course, they want happiness. You want to bring them happiness, pure happiness, the best happiness, happiness of enlightenment. They don't want suffering. Of course, you want to free them from the suffering. You want to lead them to liberation. So the love and the compassion work on the basis of feeling close to them. You don't feel like that towards sentient beings that you don't feel close to, right? So anyway, we've been through that before. So these meditations then have all been taught to do with building the foundation for the mind aspiring for seeking the welfare of others. So meditating on repaying. So then the actual generation of that mind, which is where we've got to now, page 204, this has 3 points: meditating on love, meditating on compassion, and meditating on the extraordinary attitude. So basically, it seems like Lama Tsongkhapa is gradually going to be, seems like, not 100% convinced, but it seems like he's saying something very different from what I've been saying so far. So of course, if one of us is right and one of us is wrong, then obviously he's right. But the thing is that the way I've explained it so far about the meditation that comes after repaying their kindness, which I've described as a mind to which all sentient beings appear in this very pleasing, warm, affectionate aspect. That's how they appear to you. This is completely the way that my teacher again, Tejok, explains things. And also when it comes to, so this, the fourth step, okay, so I often call it the heartwarming love, but, affectionate love, whatever you want to call it. Even recently, so again, Tejok passed away quite a few years ago. Recently, maybe, I don't know, it might have been last year, Kishing Andrapa explaining the mind training, Lojong, 7-point mind training. He's doing that at for signaling and LMB, sort of joint request, joint teaching. He said, when you get to this one, the fourth one, there's not really anything extra to do. It's just a question of like the meditation is on simply that mind to which they all appear in this very pleasing, affectionate aspect. There's not an extra there's not some extra thinking and reasoning and so on to do. Now you've done those first three meditations, all sentient beings as one's mother, kindness, repaying the kindness. Now they're going to appear to you in this very pleasing way. And you simply meditate on that. Meditating on this fourth wonder, affectionate love, would be simply, I don't know, like just I don't know, immersing yourself in that mind, which all sentient beings have that very, dear and precious aspect. Okay. So now, and then on that basis, the way Gintecho used to explain it, on that basis, because there's no fixed order, because I can't remember if that already came up in this text or whether it comes up a bit later. Lama Tsongkhapa himself says there's no fixed order for loving kindness and great compassion. The love wanting sentient beings to be happy and the compassion wanting them to be free of suffering. There's no fixed order. In other words, you can't say cause and effect. Cause and effect doesn't work. And as my teacher Gintecho used to explain it, if it depends upon the individual. I don't know if it's just random or what, but anyway, if you think about the sentient beings in terms of how they are, although they want happiness, they don't have real happiness, and you want them to have that kind of real happiness, lasting happiness, pure happiness, then the first thing that you would get would be the loving kindness. If instead the first thing that you were to think about would be the way that sentient beings are suffering, and you can't bear them to suffer, so you think I have to free them, I'm going to free them from their suffering, then the first one would be great compassion. It's just there's no fixed order. And you can imagine how it would happen, like suppose you've got to this point where you've got the this affectionate love, heartwarming love. If the I don't know if this is oversimplifying it, but if the first person you see is somebody who doesn't seem to be suffering, but seems to, you feel, oh, they're experiencing happiness, but it's not real happiness. I wish, I want to make them have real happiness. Then loving kindness will come first. If you came out of that meditation, instead you were to see somebody, like a dog suffering, a human being suffering, whoever, then the compassion would come first. Anyway, let's see what Lama Tsongkhapa says. Meditating on love. So you're going to have a meditating on love, meditating on compassion, and meditating on the extraordinary attitude. The object of love is sentient beings who do not possess happiness. Its expressions are the thought, how wonderful it would be if they were to meet with happiness. So loving kindness and compassion, the object is always the same, all sentient beings. And then in the case of loving kindness, you see them not having real happiness. So you're thinking how wonderful it would be if they were to meet with happiness. May they meet with happiness, and I will make them meet with happiness. So like the four immeasurables in the preparatory practice text that we were talking about before. Then as regards the benefits, so now quite a bit on the benefits of love, and this is all very nice anyway. You think about the benefits, and it makes you want to do the meditation more. And that's a good thing, because the more you do the meditation, the more you'll get the benefits. The object of love is, already that. As regards the benefits, the King of Concentration Sutra says, many kinds of offerings without measure in myriad neighboring pure fields, constantly offered to the most excellent beings, do not equal a fraction of the mind of love. So anyway, you could make incredible offerings to incredible number of Buddhas in an incredible number of pure lands, like just constantly offering, but just although it doesn't mention a moment, but I mean, even just meditating on the mind of love just for a very short time, just for a few moments, the benefits would be much greater. In fact, he says, Lama Tsongkhapa himself says, this is to say, the merit is, of just meditating on the mind of love is much greater than that of constantly making incredibly vast offerings to the field that is the highest object. Usually the highest, the field that is the highest object would be one's guru, actually. Then also array of qualities in Manjushri's Buddha field. Jambal Shingu. Okay, anyway, that's all right. So this is also a sutra, I believe. Sure it is. Jambal Shingu. Anyway, in the land called Ornamented by 1,000 of the great king Bodhishvara in the northeastern quarter, sentient beings possess a happiness similar to the happiness of fully ordained monks who have entered cessation. I didn't look at the commentary on this, but I remember from before what this means is, it's a particular world that sentient beings can be born in, where they happen to experiences of somebody who has achieved cessation. In other words, we talk about the truth of cessation, truth of the path. Somebody who's achieved some level of cessation. If a mind of love towards all sentient beings generated in this land for as little as the duration of a finger snap produces far more merit than someone celibate practicing pure conduct. Someone who is a celibate, I suppose, practicing pure conduct, therefore 1,000,000,000,000 years. What need is there to mention that of abiding in that mind day and night? I can't work this out. In the land called Ornamented by 1,000 of the great King Bodhishvara in the northern quarter, sentient beings possess a happiness similar to the happiness of fully ordained monks who have entered cessation. Okay, so that's them, those sentient beings. Then if a mind of love towards all sentient beings generated in that land for as little as the duration of a finger snap produces far more merit than someone practicing celibacy of the pure conduct. Pure conduct means, anyway, celibacy. Or maybe practicing celibacy in order to achieve the, enlightenment. There for 1,000,000,000 years. So if such a sentient being were to practice, celibacy, in other words, with full ordination, for 1,000,000,000 years, then compared with that, the mind of love towards all sentient beings, just for the duration of a finger snap, that would be far greater merit. So that's quite a thing, isn't it? You spend 1,000,000,000 years like keeping pure morality, just like a fully ordained monk or nun. The merit of meditating on loving kindness towards all sentient beings for just the time it takes for a finger snap is much shorter. Also, so the thing about a finger snap, to be precise, normally when they talk about a finger snap, then it's the finger snap of a person who is like, I don't know, in the prime of their youth. So the implication being that when people like me do a finger snap, it's going to take longer because the fingers are all kind of like, I don't know, not exactly fat, but I suppose the skin's beginning to deteriorate. So somehow the finger snap takes longer. But when you're young, you have a shorter finger snap. So even in that very short a period of time, you meditate on loving kindness, much, much more merit, much, much more benefit than keeping pure morality for trillions of years. Then Nagarjuna's Precious Garland says, where are we now? Oh, we've still got time. I think we might not be able to get to the end of this chapter, but anyway, nice to get to the end of this. And maybe love and kindness and compassion, that would be good. So the Precious Garland, Nagarjuna says, giving 300 pots of food 3 times daily does not equal the merit of love maintained for the duration of just one moment. It doesn't say for how long, but it probably means even for a long time. You will be loved by gods and humans. They will protect you, and you will have mental happiness and much pleasure. And so, in other words, along with the mental happiness, there's sort of like a feeling of physical well-being. Poison and weapons will no longer harm you. You will achieve your goals without effort and will be born in the Brahma realm, Brahma worlds, God realms. I don't think that means you have to be. I mean, who wants to be born as a god? I mean, I don't know. They usually say it's just too distracting, in the God realms, it's too distracting. You have so much pleasure, it's too distracting. I always think it's kind of weird, the whole idea of being born as a god. I mean, they say there's a lot of pleasure, but I mean, what are you going to do? What are you going to do all day? Just picnic? They have very long days, depending upon the God realm. Some of them, the one day lasts for 50 human years. So you can have a picnic every day for each picnic is probably going to last for years and years. And maybe you've got things like, boyfriends and girlfriends, but I mean, even that, like after a while, surely you're going to get kind of like find it a bit boring. It sounds pretty boring to me. Anyway, yeah. Even if you do not reach liberation, you will win the 8 qualities of love. Oh, we have to find out what those 8 are. I don't know if it mentions it here. Yeah, Lama Zopa used to talk about the benefits of meditating on love, and I think it'd be good if we could have a book of his teachings filled with all of the benefits he used to talk about so much. The 8 qualities of love. If you have love, gods and human beings will love you and naturally gather around you. Since the victor, in other words, the Buddha, defeated the host of Mara by the force of love, it is the best of protection, and so forth. So there's that story from the life of the Buddha, right? When he was sitting beneath the Bodhi tree, then he was attacked by this very powerful demon, Mara, and all of his kind of like, forces. And the Buddha was able to defeat them simply by meditating on loving kindness. I usually say loving kindness because I'm not quite sure about the connotations of just saying love. And I've heard His Holiness the Dalai Lama, when teaching in English, using the word loving kindness. So I usually say loving kindness these days. Yeah, and so forth. The stages of meditation on love are to meditate initially on love for your friends and relatives, then for neutral persons, then for the enemies, and then for all sentient beings. So that's similar to the I can't remember now what it said about the equanimity for the mother, for recognizing all sentient beings. No, thinking of the kindness. First of all, your mother, then your other people who are close to you, then neutral, then enemies, then all sentient beings, right? I think with the meditating on equanimity, the first one was neutral people, right? Then, if I remember rightly, after neutral people, then those who you're close to, then the enemies, then all sentient beings. And he says something about that here, which is very important, actually. I think it maybe doesn't come up right here. The stage of meditation on love are to meditate initially on love for your friends and relatives, then for neutral persons, then for your enemies, and then for all sentient beings. The way to meditate on love is as follows. Just as compassion arises when you reflect again and again on how sentient beings have the suffering of suffering, likewise, you should reflect again and again on how sentient beings are devoid of happiness, real happiness, right? In that they lack both contaminated and uncontaminated happiness. So, sometimes they have contaminated happiness, but the story for most sentient beings most of the time is not only no pure happiness, uncontaminated happiness would be like that, pure happiness, lasting, real happiness. Never mind that, they don't even have the contaminated happiness, which means like samsaric happiness, the kind of happiness that we experience most of the time from, eating, sitting out in the sun, going through all that kind of thing. They don't even have that most of the time. Once you familiarize yourself with this, the wish for them to encounter happiness will arise naturally. Why? Because you've done these other meditations. Equanimity based on that, mother, kindness, repaying. In addition, having contemplated the various kinds of happiness, offer them to sentient beings. Okay, then meditation on compassion. I think we've got time for that. We do. I think, yeah. Yeah. And meditation on compassion. Yeah, this is where it makes this quite important point. He also makes it in the Lamrim Chimmel. So the observed objects of compassion, in other words, who is it your compassion is aimed at? It's sentient beings, and particularly, those who are suffering owing to any of the three kinds of suffering. So you've got the three sufferings that were mentioned earlier on in the text: suffering of change, the pervasive suffering of conditioning. Those three. So you think about how they're suffering in those three various ways. Then its expression is the thoughts. So anyway, what you focusing on those sentient beings and thinking about how they're suffering, then the thought is, if only they were free from their suffering, may they be free, and I will free them. I will free them from those different types of suffering. The sequence of the meditation is to meditate on compassion for your friends and relatives first, then neutral persons, then for the enemies. Same as for loving kindness, right? It doesn't say, does it? Does it? I thought it did say. Oh, yeah. It's just above. No wonder it seems familiar. So, first of all, friends and relatives, neutral enemies. And here, friends and relatives, neutral enemies, same. And then all sentient beings. That's the 10 directions, northeast, southwest, 4 intermediate directions above and below. So this gradual meditation on equanimity, this is really quite an important point. This gradual meditation on equanimity, love, and compassion, in which you differentiate their objects, right? Friend, enemy, neutral person, was developed by the master Kamalashila, following the Abhidharma Sutra. This is a very important point because, so it's not just me saying it's important, Lama Tsongkhapa says it's important. Because if from the start you train in observing sentient beings in general without dividing them into specific categories, like not dealing with the fact that generally we categorize sentient beings in those ways, without dividing them into those specific categories, those 3 categories, it will seem as if equanimity and so forth have arisen. You'll feel like you have a mind of equanimity. You'll feel like you have those other meditations up to loving kindness and great compassion. On the other hand, if you experience a change in your mentality towards them one by one, as explained above, and then extend that. Sorry, I skipped. Without dividing into specific categories, it will seem as if equanimity and so forth have arisen. But when you think about friends and so forth, one by one, it will appear that they have not arisen for any of them. So you just meditate on them in general, you feel like you've got them. When you think about friends or enemies or neutral people, it's like that feeling of equanimity, loving kindness, compassion just goes. It just goes. You don't really have it. On the other hand, if you experience a change in your mentality towards them one by one, as explained above, your way of thinking changes by meditating that way, category by category, friend, enemy, and stranger, and then extend that to many, and to all sentient beings, finally focusing on them in general. So you end up thinking about them all in general, but you don't start that way. You start friend, enemy, and stranger. Otherwise, it just won't work. Finally focusing on them in general and sustaining it, like keep that meditation going. Those feelings will arise purely, regardless of who is observed, because you've gone through, particularly the equanimity meditation. If you think about it, particularly it all comes down to the equanimity meditation. Because you've done that, then it'll be very easy for you to feel loving kindness, compassion towards whoever you see. So really what this is talking about is you haven't done that, and we might have experienced it actually. So, like you decide you're going to do a meditation on great compassion or loving kindness. So you generate that mind, wanting all sentient beings to be happy, to have the pure happiness of enlightenment, wanting all sentient beings to be completely free of suffering forever. So you have that meditation, and it works. It's there in your mind, and you have that nice feeling, nice feeling of having, sending out loving thoughts and compassionate thoughts to all sentient beings. But now, in real life, when you come across somebody that's annoying, that's hurting you, or maybe the people, the people that are very close to you, then it's like you realize you don't have it at all. You just don't have any real, it's just not real loving kindness, it's not real compassion. So this is why you have to have that working on them in those three categories as you're going along. Although the main thing I think is the equanimity, but the other meditations, as he's explained, you start off with one category, then move on to the next category, and then gradually extend to all sentient beings. So on the other hand, if you experience a change in your mentality, your way of thinking towards them one by one, as explained above, and then extend that to many, finally focusing on them in general and sustaining that, those feelings will arise purely regardless of who is observed, whether a group or each one singly. The way to meditate is in terms of the sufferings that were explained when contemplating how sentient beings who have been our mothers have fallen into existence, in other words, cyclic existence, and are experiencing the general and specific sufferings. The measure of the arising of compassion is taught in the first days of meditation. Compassion, so this is Kamalashla, right? The Gomrimu Bhavana Krama. Compassion is complete at the point where it expresses itself as a constant desire to remove the suffering of all beings, as if your beloved child were unhappy, and it operates, sort of like functions naturally in you, spontaneously and in accordance with your nature. I think in accordance with your nature means like it's just coming naturally. Thereby, it obtains the name great compassion. So that's what great compassion refers to when you have great compassion. It's like that. It's arising spontaneously, naturally, and it's towards all sentient beings, just like if you were to see, your own beloved child is unhappy. Thus, if compassion towards all sentient beings naturally arises to the extent that it arises in a mother when the child she loves with all her heart suffers, it is known as fully qualified great compassion, like real great compassion. It should be known that this is also the measure of the arising of great love. It's an expression you don't see often, but just like there's great compassion, there's also great love. What's great about them is, in one way, it's because it sort of encompasses all sentient beings, but mainly because of taking responsibility. And so anyway, taking responsibility is the thing that comes up next. And just, I think I was telling Michael before the class, the next class. So that finishes this set of 6. The next one is going to be a set of 5. It sort of didn't really work to do more than 5. And so actually we've got the 5th of September. Next, we would normally take a break anyway. And then the next Thursday, 22nd of August, it wouldn't work out. I have to go to Vajrapani. Then, so it's going to be the 5th of September. Then I can't remember why, but there's no class the next week. Oh, I know, it's because it's the day before I fly back to the UK. Then the 19th. So anyway, next month it's it's the 5th and the 19th of next month, the 5th and the 19th. Yeah, 5th and 19th. Okay. So thank you very much again. Everybody's doing really great, I think. It's really amazing. And yeah, so we're gonna have a couple of weeks break and then see you again, hopefully. We'll be able to finish this off. Yeah. So can we finish with some dedication, please, Michael? Janju Sem Jorim Boje Maige Panam Ke Gyuji Ke Panyamba Me Bai Kong Ne Kong Pavajo. Okay, then we'll do this. Yes, please. So this is important, dedicating not only one's own merit from doing this, but all the merit, oneself and others, past, present, and future, which includes all of the amazing merit created, being created, going to be created by all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, especially one's guru. Due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, and all the merits, so the 3 times collected by numberless Buddhas and numberless sentient beings, may Bodhicitta be generated in the hearts of all the sentient beings in the 6th realm, and especially in the hearts of everybody in this world, including all the students, the benefactors, and volunteers in the FPMT organization. May it be generated in the hearts of all those who rely upon me, all those for whom I have promised to pray, and all those whose names have been given to me. So dedicating especially also for Land of Medicine Buddha, everybody that works in, is volunteer at, studies, ever visits LMBs, dedicated for them, also dedicating for all of those who are on our dedication list at LMB and all of the FPMT centers. May it be generated in my heart and in the hearts of all my family members, those who are living and those who have died. May the bodhicitta that has already been generated increase. Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling, jewel source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, may you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. I fully dedicate all these virtues to be able to train just like the hero Manjushri, who knows reality, and just like Samantha Bhadra as well. I fully dedicate all my roots of virtue with the dedication praises the best by all the gone beyond, victorious ones of the 3 times in order to have good conduct. Due to this virtue, may I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all transmigratory beings without exception to that state. Due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, the numberless Buddhas and numberless sentient beings which are completely empty of existing from their own side, may I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of full enlightenment which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state which is completely empty of existing from its own side, by myself alone, who am completely empty of existing from my own side. As long as any sentient being has not been liberated from samsara, may I abide in samsara, may I remain in samsara, in other words, to help them, even though I achieve our highest enlightenment. By merely seeing, hearing, thinking about, or remembering me, as well as by touching me or talking to me, may also suffering instantly be pacified, and may there be happiness forever. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Prajika Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings, through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of Bodhicitta of the children of victorious ones, may the smile of reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Okay, thanks again, and take care, everybody, and see you soon. Bye.
Thank you, Venerable.